A History of Southern Missouri and Northern Arkansas by William Monks. Dow Bryant and the Gallon of Whisky. I will here relate an instance that I well remember. A man by the name of Bridges lived just above where Bakersfield is now located, owned a little mill at the same place where they still continue the work of the mill just above Bakersfield. The mill ground from 12 to 15 bushels per day. Most of us carried our sacks on horseback and ground by turns. Bridges had employed a man by the name of Shipment to run the mill. He was a small man, weighing only about 135 pounds, and there was a man by the name of Dow Bryant, lately from the state of Tennessee, quite a large man, weighing 225 pounds, who delighted in fighting under the old style, and claimed that he had whipped two of the best men in Tennessee at the same time. Shipment had made some statement that reflected upon Bryant, so Bryant procured a gallon of whiskey, and taking two men with him, went from Bennett's River over to the mill and informed Shipment of what he had heard he had said in regard to him, and said to Shipment that if he had said it and didn't take it back, he would have to whip him, and the only thing he hated about it would be the whipping of as little a man as he was. Shipment replied that he need not take that matter into consideration, and that his father had always taught him that if he told anything and it was the truth, not to take it back under any consideration, and that what he had said was true. And as to his whipping him, his father had always taught him never to admit anything until he knew it was true. And I have my doubts about you being able to whip me. But if you will get your second ready, as soon as the corn that is in the hopper is ground out, and I refill the hopper, I will get my second, and we will go out into the mill yard so you can test it. They accordingly got their seconds, went into the mill yard, formed a ring, and when the word was given by the seconds, they went together. Shipment bit every finger on the right hand and 3 fingers on the left hand to the bone, and Bryant's friend, seeing he was going to be whipped, proposed parting them. Bryant returned home, and when his neighbors would meet him with his fingers all bound up, they would say, "Hello there, what's the matter?" His reply would be, "I went over into the wilderness and got hold of a wildcat, and it liked to have eaten me up before I could get loose from it." He would further say that Shipment was all mouth, and that he could not put his hands anywhere about his head unless he got them in his mouth. I will give another instance touching the same man, Bryant. He went over to Salem during circuit court. The sheriff of the county was a man by the name of Dick Benton, quite a small man, and the constable of the township was named Moore, and a very small man. Bryant was drinking some and wanted to fight as usual and became noisy. The judge ordered the constable to arrest him, but when Bryant saw the constable coming, he backed behind an old building and ordered the constable not to rush upon him. When the constable came in reach, he knocked him down, came walking around, and remarked that no ticky officer could arrest him. The judge then ordered the sheriff to arrest him. When the sheriff came within reach, he knocked him down, came walking back, and remarked, "I thought they understood me when I told them that a ticky set of officers could not arrest me." During the time, the father-in-law of the sheriff had come out. Bryant walked up to him and, with a D, said, "I want to know what you are doing here." Without any more words being passed, the sheriff's father-in-law knocked Bryant down, jumped onto him, but he hollowed and they took him off. Bryant straightened himself up right into his face again and remarked, "I have told a lie. I am not whipped." Without any more words, he knocked him down again and gave him a considerable pelting. Bryant hallooed again, and after they had taken him off, he straightened up and walked off about 10 steps distant, turned around and remarked, "I have told a lie. I am not whipped." but I am not going to say it within reach of that old man any more. On the same day, some men knocked him down, taking a common clapboard, hit him 3 licks while he was running on all fours, then got a piece of chalk and wrote on it, "Dow's board," and nailed it up on the corner of the square. The drinking class for years used all manner of language and obscenity in the streets, and even in the hearing of the court. There was a man by the name of Neely who became a candidate for circuit judge, and one of the main reasons he urged for his election was that, if elected, he would punish all offenders of the public peace and force all persons to respect the court, and he would discharge the duties with some dignity and respect for himself and the people. Shortly after he was elected and during his first court, a man by the name of Smith, who lived just north of Salem on the South Fork and who had worked for his election, came into the courtroom after the court was in session, walked around to the judge, took him by the hand, and remarked, "Judge, I want to congratulate you on your success, and I hope things will change." The judge turned to the clerk and remarked, "Mr. Clerk, assess a fine of $5 against Mr. Smith." Smith soon retired from the courtroom and declared that Neely was a tyrant, and that if he had his vote back he would not support him. In the afternoon, the judge ordered the sheriff to bring Mr. Smith into the courtroom and said to him, "Mr. Smith, you were a warm friend of mine in my canvass, worked for my election, and no doubt contributed much to my success. Now, I don't want to disappoint you in any promises that I made during the canvass, but after court is convened, and the judge on the bench, it is contempt in any gentleman to come up and take him by the hand and congratulate him on his success. And now I hope that you, with all others of my friends and those who are not, will support and protect me in enforcing the dignity of the court." Mr. Smith at once became pacified and said that the judge was right. We remember another instance that occurred during the same court. There was a young lawyer who came into court wearing a very fine pair of boots, and standing on his feet, he would occasionally raise onto his toes, and you could hear his boots creak all over the courtroom. The judge turned to him and remarked, "Mister, what did those boots cost you?" The lawyer quickly replied, $10, sir." The judge remarked to him, "I think you got the boots too cheap. I think they ought to be worth $20. Mr. Clerk, assess a fine of $10 against this man." On the next day, a man by the name of Cage Hogan, a man who was widely known in company with others, got on the public square near the saloon and began to curse and swear and use all manner of obscenity. The judge ordered the sheriff to go down and see who was making the disturbance. The sheriff went out to the place and stated to the crowd that the judge had ordered him to see who was creating that disturbance and to arrest the party. Hogan remarked with an oath, "You go back and tell the old judge that it is Cage Hogan and that I suppose he has heard of me before, and I don't allow sheriffs to arrest me until I get ready." The sheriff came back and reported to the court, and the judge made an order for him to proceed at once and arrest Mr. Hogan and all others that he might find acting in a boisterous manner, and, if necessary, to take the power of the county, and if he didn't immediately bring him into the courtroom, he would assess a fine against him of $100. The sheriff returned and informed Mr. Hogan of what the court had said, and that he would be bound to arrest him and take him by force if he didn't go without it. Hogan remarked that if it would be any pleasure and consolation to the old tyrant, he was the man who could go into the courtroom. When he came into the courtroom, the sheriff said, "Here's Mr. Hogan." Mr. Hogan remarked with an oath, "I'm here, Judge, and I would like to know what you want." The judge replied that there were some parties creating a disturbance in the hearing of the court, and that he had ordered them arrested and brought in. "Do you know who the parties are?" Hogan, with an oath, replied, "I am the man, And, Judge, I want you to understand that I am a horse, and if you hain't become acquainted with old Cage Hogan, you will." The judge remarked to him that they had a stable, and that was the place for horses, and that he would assess a fine of $50 against him and order the sheriff to take him to jail until it was paid. Hogan, remarking, "I always carry the money to pay my way, and you need not put yourself to any trouble to have the sheriff carry me to jail," pulled out his pocket book, took out $50, and said with an oath, "Here is the money, and I want you to understand that I am no jailbird, and you can't stick me in your old jail." The judge then said, "Mr. Hogan seems to have plenty of money. Mr. Clerk, assess another $50 fine against him." At that, Hogan appeared to hesitate and reflect, and pulling out a quart bottle of whiskey from his pocket, started to approach the judge, who was on the bench, saying with an oath, "Here, Judge, let's drink together and be friends and stop this foolishness." The judge turned to the clerk and said, "Mr. Clerk, assess another fine of $50 against him, and ordered the sheriff to take him forthwith to jail and keep him there until further orders, for he considered him an unlawful horse, and he did not think it safe for society for him to run at large." The sheriff, with a considerable posse, carried him to the jail, and with considerable trouble put him in and shut him up. He remained in jail 2 days, and at the evening session of the second day, the sheriff came into court and said that Mr. Hogan was very desirous of seeing the court. The court then ordered him brought in. On his being brought in, the court asked him if he still thought he was a horse. Hogan replied, "No, sir, I am not anything now but Cage Hogan." The judge said, "As you have now arrived at the conclusion that you are human and not animal, are you willing to respect the laws of your land and the dignity of this court?" Hogan replied, "I am, Judge, with all my heart." The judge then said to him, "What about that money of yours? Are you able to pay the $150 fine?" Hogan said, "No, Judge, I don't feel like I could pay $150 this evening. I don't feel as rich and as brave as I did when you first brought me into court, and I want you to be as lenient with me as possible." The court said, "Mr. Hogan, if you will promise me that you will neither disturb the dignity of this court nor incite others to do so, I will remit all of your fine except $50. Mr. Hogan then and there paid the $50 fine and was released. From that time up to the end of his term, there never was any disturbance of any nature in the hearing of the court. And if you went into the courtroom, everything was so quiet that you could almost hear a pin drop.